Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to see how we can implement disk quotas in Linux. But why would somebody need disk quotas? Well, if you have got Linux operating system and it is being maintained by multiple users or multiple users are in there, then in many circumstances, you wouldn't want your users to, or some of the users to consume all of the disk space. In those circumstances, you would like to implement some kind of limitation that a user does not get exceeded from his limits and consume up other user space. So that is the concept of disk quotas, and it's pretty simple in Linux. Linux supports disk quotas based on users, so users can be restricted, and also based on groups. Now from implementation point of view, there are two limits as far as disk quotas is concerned. Number one is soft and the other one is hard. Hard is pretty simple. If you assign a user, let's say that he cannot create more than say 20 files, then if he is able to create 20 files, then after that he will be given a message that disk quota exceeded. But in case of soft limit, let's say we set a soft limit of 10 and a hard limit of, so this is soft and this is hard limit of 20, then as soon as user is reached to its soft limit 10 and he exceeded it even by number 1, let's say he creates 11 files, then as soon as he creates 11th file, a grace period will be started, which by default is 7 days. And this would mean that within 7 days, user can go up to his hard limit of 20. Let's say on 7th day, user was having 17 files. Then after the expiry of 7 days, the hard limit will be converted to 17 and not 20. But before the expiry of 7 days, let's say user clean up some of the files and comes back to the soft limit, which was 10, then the grace period will be over or it will be reset, and user will again be able to create 20 files. So in essence, we can create disk quotas for user and groups based on either the number of files or the blocks or the size of the total disk space that a user can consume. So now let's get on to the terminal and see how we can implement these disk quotas on Linux. So I'm here at my Ubuntu box, and in Ubuntu, if you or in Debian or in most of the distros, quota is not enabled by default, or even the packages are not available. So if you want to install quota, you need to run the command. In case of Debian based distribution, it's sudo apt get install and quota, and that's it. Now I have already installed quota, so it will just say that quota is already installed. But if you do it, it's just a couple of kilobytes package, so it wouldn't take any longer. Once it gets installed, you need to enable it on certain partition or disk, because of course we will implement it on disks. Now to implement on disk, you need to enable the quota option for users or for groups at the time when the disk is mounted. And we know that we can define that option of disk mounting in etc fs tab or file system table file, which is sudo vi etc and file system tab. So this is the file over here that is already mounted, this sdb1 partition, which is mounted on home mnt and with default parameters. So what we can do is that we can put in the options of user quota over here by typing in user quota, and maybe if you want to enable group quota as well, we can type in by putting a comma and then group quota, and that's it. Now save the file, get out of the editor, and let's have a look at whether this is mounted or not. So this is mounted. The file type, file system type is extended to, and since we have made changes in the file system in this fs tab file, we need to reread it so that the quota limits get incorporated on the file system. So the way to do that is sudo mount minus o remount and then the partition, which is dev sdb1. So I do that, and now if I type in mount, we see that it has implemented this user quota and group quota. If I bring it up a little bit, earlier we see that this was not in here. So now since it's implemented, we can implement disk and user quota on the users or maybe on group basis. Now I have mounted this partition on this folder, which is home ahmed mnt, and at the moment I am in home ahmed, and if I have a look at the contents of the directory, which is, let's say, -a, I see that I have this file mnt. If I do ls-l, this is the directory that I was talking about. So if I get into this directory mnt and look at the contents of it, there is nothing in there. Now once this is mounted, the quota is by default, it's in off state, but if you turn on the system by using boot, then quota gets enabled. So just to make sure that quota is off by default, because we first want to create a file which verifies and updates the quota information on disk. So in order to use that utility, we first need to ensure that quota is off. So we can do that by typing in sudo quota off and then the partition which is mounted, or the drive which is mounted, sdb1. And the command that I was about to tell you was sudo quota check and create files for users, u flag, and if we want to create the file, it's a binary file for group as well, so I put in g and then the drive, which is sdb1. So once I do that, it will create the binary files which will hold the information for the quotas that will be created for users as well as for the groups in the same very directory in which I am in. So let's just give it a while. Once it creates those two files, let's have a look at them by typing in ls-l. So these are the two files which are the binary files that this utility quota check has created. Now let's turn on the quota or implement or activate quota on this particular drive by typing in sudo quota on and then dev/sdb1. Once that is on, we can see the report of the quota, that what is the status, let's say, for a particular user or a particular group. So I can type in by, let's say, sudo then report quota and on which drive I want it to report on. In our case, it's dev sdb1. So we see that there is a user Ahmed and it is using 4K of blocks and it is already using a file 1. So let's try to edit this. Let's say I type in sudo edit quota minus user Ahmed, and let me just expand it. So I'm here at the moment and this is the temporary file. Once we save it, its values get saved in the files that we had just created. So these are the values. This is inode, these are the blocks, 4 blocks. These are the soft limit and hard limit, and these are inodes, which represents the number of files, and this represents the total disk usage that a user can consume in shape of blocks. These blocks can vary depending upon the file system and also the options that we set at the creation of the file system. They can range from 512 bytes to 8 KB. So if we come on to inodes and over here, if I type in, let's say, set the hard limit to maybe 3. So let's just set it to 3, get out of the editor, save changes, and now we are out. Now I'm in MNT and I already have one inode consumed. So I can only create 2 more files. And after that, we should ideally be seeing that I'll be given a message that I cannot create any more file. So let's just try to create a file by typing in touch abc. So I have created 2 files now, or consumed 2 inode numbers. And let's also create def, another file. Now apparently my quota is full. As we can see in this output, I'm checking the report of quota on this particular drive. And if I try to create now another file by, let's say, xxx, we see that it gives the message that this quota exceeded. We can also see in here that the default grace period that I was telling you about, inode grace time, is 7 days. We can change it by using the option -t. So I can type in like sudo, then edit quota, then -t. Let's change this limit to 14, and then the device or the drive that we want to implement it on, which is SDB1. I need to mention the user or the group as well. So let's just put in -u and Ahmed. Rather, I do not need to put in the drive letter, just put in the -t option so that it is implemented, and it will be implemented for all the drives. So I put in edit quota -t and I press enter, and over here I can change these limits to whatever values I like maybe 10 days or maybe less number of days for blocks as well as for inodes. So that's all there is to it as far as implementing quota on Linux file systems are concerned. I hope you have learned from this video, and I would like to thank you for viewing.